So when we last caught up was on the phone, wasn't it, Nicky? Yes. And you were on location doing the music video.
Show Me the Wonder, yeah. We were in at Porth in a old working men's club. Boiling hot. James was just... I've never seen him sweat so much. Because there was no air conditioning. It was 80 outside. It must have been 90 or 100 inside.
We had kind of like a real kind of period 70s polyester shirts on and like fake sideburns and kind of like a leather jacket. And I just felt as if I had this massive flame inside my head. Yeah. I just felt I was going to just going to combust.
It is the situation where you definitely want a really good camera on you, isn't it? When you're feeling like that. Well, listen, I've been listening to the album this morning, got sent it this morning, and it's a beautiful thing. I've just been reading the PR that accompanies it. I always find it kind of quite interesting to see how it's kind of portrayed from sort of... You listen to it first in your own right, and then you read sort of other sort of opinions and what you've obviously said to the record label as well. The quietest, most beautiful album yet, it says here.
I'd like to think so.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think kind of this... When the lyrics started being delivered from Nick... it was obvious that, a lot of the themes on the record were kind of, some of them were darker, but in a gentler kind of way. We were dealing with perhaps time that has passed by and left us for good, people that have left us for good as well. Having a sense of mortality, and also still being the faintly ridiculous notion of being a rock and roll band at the age of 44 and everything having changed around you, and I think some of those themes are in there, and there's more stuff in there, and naturally those lyrics kind of led us to a more gentler direction with the music. It just seemed ridiculous to have my guitar barking big riffs over the top of these lyrics, and that was just the start of the direction of the record, I think.
So I was going to say, you play guitar on one track, don't you, on the album?
Electric guitar, yeah, this one solo. I had a merciful... You
let him off for one.
Yeah, I was
off the
Go
leash.
On then, James.
And I was allowed...
Took the muzzle off.
And there was a quota of notes I could use as well at that point. But I think, that was the main reason for kind of like, the record becoming a bit more bucolic, or just, having gentler brushstrokes through it, because, I think there's a lot of self-analysis and analysis of everything around you on there, I think.
A lot of brass. I'm a sucker for brass. Yes. It makes me very happy.
Yeah, it's a big element of the record. Sean, drummer Sean, obviously, is a trained trumpeter, so there's a lot of him on there, and some other brass sections as well. We did want... It's a very sad and quiet album, so we did want to have some kind of uplifting moments, which I think brass always gives you that kind of melancholic uplift.
It really does. It's almost like a carnival, isn't it?
Yeah, it combines so many emotions, and
it was definitely a bit of some of Dexy's more warmer moments kind of influenced the kind of thing.
And a bit of sort of end of the 60s Van Morrison. Tracks like It Stone Me had a big influence on the brass sort of arrangements. And we've done strings to death. We've done guitars to death. And it is out.
I haven't done guitars to death yet. That's not,
Well, they might return, but I'm sure they will. But it's a big risk for us, because obviously big string sections or big guitar hooks are a huge part of our sound, and they always have been. So it's for us, it's a radical shift. It is our quietest album. I mean, just the way James sings, it's very kind of tender and intimate. But we just knew that was the way it was going as we kind of trundled along.
And can we talk about the sort of lyrical context of it? Because when you were talking about sort of, it says here, sort of staring death right in the face, really, and you said the notion of writing an album when you are a little bit older. Did you all sit down and feel that was a common kind of literary kind of...
I think I dragged them into my nasty little lair. It's just about mortality, really. It's just realising that we're the grown-ups now. We've all got kids. And we've kind of held on to that rock and roll dream right up until Postcards. I think with Postcards from a Young Man, which an album we dearly love, but it felt like the last hurrah of the kind of the British tradition of a great rock band, I think afterwards it just didn't feel that there was anywhere left to go, but to go less, and the lyrics were... It's a kind of different sort of rawness to the lyrics, really. There's no point trying to hide the dilemma of, losing people that you've kind of loved, and trying to hold on to your principles as well. as a band, which is not easy, because the world has changed so much.
So complete and utter grace, really, I suppose.
Trying for it. Searching for grace, definitely.
Well, one gentleman that I do think has always been very graceful on record is Richard Hawley, who, of course,
Yes.
he teamed up with as well, who's got the most incredible vocal, hasn't he, on everything he seems to record.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of definitely brings the man to the Manics in terms of his deep tones, It's kind of like having Rennie and Renata. I'm up there high and he's down low. And it's kind of when it's a reference point no one's going
to get anymore.
But kind of, Nick started up writing this song as an experiment where kind of the verses were written around a kind of a David Axelrod tune, which we subsequently replaced with us playing all those parts itself. Ourselves, and then we created the other half of the song, where I start singing. So I started off as this experiment, almost as a duet between myself and Nick, and I probably was a tiny bit pushy in wanting to try Richard Hawley to sing it, because Nick, there is an existing version of Nick singing really well on it.
But I have no desire to keep mine.
It's a beautiful vocal on it. But I actually had the sense that I didn't actually want Nick singing those lyrics every night, because I think it's if you think like a method actor, do you really want to be getting that emotional space every night? It's pretty gut wrenching lyric, really. I think. For the want of not wanting to sound too dramatic. So kind of, it was just, I had this instinctive thing that I wanted Richard Hawley to sing it. And he's one of the only musicians that I've got in my phone book. I've kind of had a few jars with him in the past and always really got on with him. Just love him. So, and he just said yes straight away. He just drove down and just did it.
And I think you said when I spoke to you before, Nick, you were saying it was just such an easy recording experience when you're all together. It just felt sort of just normal, natural, the way it should be, kind of.
Yeah, which sometimes it does, like when Nina duetted with us or Ian McCulloch. They're all different, but I think because James and Richard kind of just had this, some sort of telepathy, really, and we wanted that sort of Scott Walker cinematic deepness.
Quite, yeah.
And which I can't do.
No, you're Renee. Of course, you're Renee. Or are you Renata? Sorry. No, you're Renata.
Am I? I don't know.
What we normally do when I do Album of the Week is I pick 4 tracks from the record that I normally have a bit more time to listen to, but these are the ones that I picked up on today, which was this Sullen Welsh Heart, which is a beautiful opener. Yeah. Rewind, the film title track, of course. I loved I Miss a Tokyo Skyline.
Yeah.
That was probably like my favourite, I think, track on the record. And Manorbia's the instrumental, of course. Am I saying that right?
Manabia, you're there.
And 30 Year War as well. So they're the ones that I picked. So any of those you'd like to particularly talk about? Any massive points?
Well, I think Manabia is the first time we've had an instrumental on an album. We've done lots of instrumentals, which are fan favourites on B-sides and stuff. A particular track called Horses Under Starlight, I know, is a fan's favourite. But this time we just felt there's so many words on this album. We really need an instrumental just to give people a break. A bit of space, and Manabia is this amazing little castle stroke village stroke beach in West Wales, which I visit a lot, and Virginia Woolf wrote to the lighthouse there, I think, and lots of writers have been there, and it just seemed to fit the kind of sound that James and Sean were coming up with this. It's a very odd sort of sound, but
I mean, it's kind of this theremin on the track, and I never want to play that instrument ever again.
Was it really tough? I've never played a theremin, but
because kind of like you've just got to hold your hand up to it, and everybody's seen Jimmy Page trying to play it, and song remains the same, but he's just making a noise from it. It's not, to get the definite notes, you just got to keep your hand in the same space, and it's just that exercise of realizing once you've kept your hand in in the same place for 2 minutes, it starts to ache. And I did about 50 takes, and I was But it's nice that kind of that people are starting to pick it up, because a lot of people around us tried to convince us to leave it off when we were putting the album together. So it's kind of nice. It's kind of getting some kind of validation.
A lot of people just picking up, and I think it's a relief, because we are very wordy. I mean, the track after it, 30 Year War, which is the last track on the album, is full of words. I mean, it's just so many verses and choruses and stuff. So it's good that you have a breather before you get into that kind of last track.
It kind of does show, I mean, Manabia and the track Manabia and 30 Year War inhabited in the same space at the end of the record. It's kind of weird, because 30 Year War has so many words in it, and it does have a lyric that only Nick could write. And kind of like, I think this probably, if anybody ever says, why are you still around, then we could just say, well, just because of that song, because no one else writes that lyric. So kind of like, even if it's only one reason for us to be around is to write that song.
Other things lyrically that I was picking up on the album was kind of, or sort of thoughts surrounding it was sort of, sort of really fighting for bands to just really still write about and believe in what they believe in, and feeling like this industry that we both work in is being overtaken by brands. And did I read like school kids that are like sort of going to all these specialist schools and getting straight into the charts and that kind of thing? Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, that track in particular, 30-Year War, it kind of tries to span the last 30 years of social upheaval, shall we call it?
That's a much better umbrella way of saying it than I do.
I think the Etonian reference is just about when things are completely out of balance. When you have a government that's making so many decisions on behalf of ordinary people, but then being made by people that nearly exclusively, privately educated. It's not it's not an actual kind of like war against somebody's any kind of private education. It's when the most of the cabinet seem to be made up of such people. It's when things are completely out of balance. That's the angle of it, and it's kind of the song just does go to there's been a long 3 years of people talking about the state apparatus between the press and the police, etc. And and it just, a lot of the songs kind of just goes to dispel a lot of myths that were perpetuated about our working class in the 80s, I think.
I think it feels like it's actually, we've always quite enjoyed, we've never been part of any movement. We kind of rode the odd coattail of Britpop, but we've always been on our own. It feels even more extreme now that we kind of, all our contemporaries have either split up or reformed and just on a nostalgia trip or whatever, but we're the only ones who still kind of feel a lot of the same things that we always felt. And that used to give you strength, but now you actually feel pretty scared by it. You actually feel like, well, there's no one who's going to do it instead of us. There's no one who's done it while we've been going. And it's pretty frightening, really, that everyone is just genuinely, in musical terms, very content with nothing more than fame.
We are, but kind of, we do have the nature of us, which we do kind of dissect things and worry about the political side of things, but also there's the spiteful edge to us, where we just hate the fact that so many records are just made up of woes now. It's just like
some idiot down the front banging a floor tom, going do.
If people go on about us, making in the past making stadium kind of like anthem, but there's nothing more cliched and hackneyed and simple and stadium-esque than going whoa, and it's in every record, from whether it be a gap year kind of band or whether it be a kind of some kind of R&B record, woes rule the airwaves at the moment.
Yes, it does. I've noticed that too, because I have to play it on. But I think that there actually is a lot of people out there who are kind of still very, very kind of honest and true to their roots, but they're not because they're not interested in fame, they're probably not propelling themselves forwards.
Well, it's true. No, you're completely right. You have to actually mainline into that culture. It's not, I guess, when we were growing up, what we're trying to say is we had kind of brilliant odd role models that would infiltrate the mainstream, be it Johnny Rotten or Morrissey or Ian McCulloch, or then Axl Rhodes comes in from the middle of Nowheresville in America, or Chuck D. They just don't exist at the moment. Those people, the outsiders, or whatever you want to call them, are so marginalised that you don't get those moments of belonging that we had. And I just think that's really unhealthy. Yeah, I don't think it's up to us to provide that. It should be quite. The youth.
The youth of today. I did read yesterday, though, that last quarter vinyl outsold CDs, so that's quite reassuring.
Yeah, but that's just 40-year-old blokes trying to relive their past. Yeah,
and all the people that probably can't afford it save up and get them. Anyway, one new band that you are backing, though, that you're taking out on the road is Public Service Broadcasting, so they must be thrilled.
And there's always good music, mate. There's always, Britain is a hotbed of a love of music, It's not... I don't think we're saying that there's nothing out there.
Oh, no, I know. Yeah.
I think all we're saying is, unfortunately, the stuff like with a bit of meaning just doesn't seem to infiltrate like it once did. And Public Service Broadcasting are brilliant. Can't wait to have them on tour.
And they've done a really good job. And they're not marginalised. They seem to have some kind of presence, whereas most of the records I do buy, I buy 5 albums a month at least. you know, I don't know if I'm ever going to get to see any of these bands live, because some of them never come to Britain and they'll split up after their first album.
Quite.
So it's just that kind of thing of wanting to be in love with a band that you know are going to make 6 albums kind of thing.
Quite, yeah.
Doesn't seem to happen as much anymore.
Well, fingers crossed. Well, thank you so much for your time. I look forward to airing this interview. It's always a pleasure to talk to you both, so thank you very much.